I am your host of Across Generations, Tiffany D. Cross, and this is the only place where you will hear 3 different perspectives from 3 distinct generations of Black women, and I'm so thrilled to invite you to this conversation. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Tiffany D. Cross, and welcome to another episode of Across Generations. And look, before we say anything, let me just say right from the top, I want to give a special shout out to all the Black men out there holding it down. We see you, we support you, we honor you. Which leads me to this question. Do you guys ever wonder where this narrative of the absent Black father comes from? It seems to pop up everywhere. You see it in movies, you see it in TV shows, and honestly, even generalized conversation. Our counterparts are far too often portrayed as absent or not engaged and overall just not very good fathers. And of course, yes, I know there are plenty of people who anecdotally did not grow up with a father. I have friends like that, of course. However, the data shows just how active and involved Black fathers are. It tells a completely different story. And in fact, Black fathers are so active, it's disproportionate to most other groups. For example, 70% of Black fathers who live with their children were most likely to have bathed, dressed, changed, or helped their babies potty every single day. That says a lot. Now, remember, that is for fathers who live with their families. The data show that was more than white fathers. It was more than Latino fathers. And according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, their 2013 National Health Statistics Report really highlights a lot of interesting facts. Those same Black fathers were also most likely to have eaten a meal with their children. And the numbers are high, not just for biological fathers living inside the home, but also for Black fathers stepping into the role of a step-parent. And it shows Black fathers maintain consistent involvement living outside the home. So brothers, I want you to know, we see you, we honor you, and we respect you. Now, as you guys know, on this show each week, we center Black women. It's always an elder, a younger, and me. Well, I read your comments, and far too often I see men saying, hey, well, we want to be a part of the conversation too. Well, guess what? Today we are doing just that. I am joined today by 2 Black men, I'm very proud to say. So joining me now, Keith Dent is an entrepreneur and relationship coach. He hosts a podcast called Black Men Speak, a podcast that highlights ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things. He's also the author of a relationship book called In the Paint, How to Win at the Game of Love. Keith has been married for 27 years and has 3 adult children. I already have a lot of questions for Keith. On the other side, our younger guest is Isaiah Gaymon. He is a husband, a girl dad. We love that. Digital content creator and a wellness enthusiast born and raised in West Philadelphia, He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And he truly believes that leading with love, integrity, and passion are the keys to leading a successful lifestyle. His heart lies in making a difference and connecting with surrounding communities to ignite change. So I really love that. And I'm very happy to have you both here. Keith, I have to start with you. Relationship coach.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
What makes you a relationship coach? Because you see so often people like just self-declare, like I'm a relationship coach. And I'm like, do you have letters by your name? Especially in this Instagram culture where it's a lot of people, who say some words and put some music behind it. And it's like, voila, I'm a relationship coach.
Well, I was a certified coach. Well, first, thank you for allowing me to be here today.
I'm so happy you're here.
This is fantastic. So I got a certification in coaching.
Okay.
And my specialty was relationships.
Why relationships?
Probably 2 things. I went to a relationship retreat before and found that they just weren't doing it right. And so I was like, well, why don't I focus on relationships? And so that's what I did, as opposed to I could have been a business coach. I could have been a lifestyle coach, but this was probably about 10, 15 years ago. And so there wasn't really that coach out there, especially in the Black community.
Yeah.
Full transparency though. I used to watch this show on Lifetime? Yeah, Lifetime. where they talked about marriage, right? Well, they really talked about the wedding, but then they didn't focus on the marriage at all. So I was like, oh, we definitely need to focus on that, because all people cared about at the time were the marriage. And before you know it, you'd find out most relationships were over in 5 years. And so, and especially in our communities, that this needed to be done. And so that's why I focused on relationships.
Oh, interesting. I think what's interesting about both of you gentlemen being here is you're both very centered on community. You're both very conscious about it. So my question to both of you, and I'll start with you, Keith, and then we'll make our way over to you. There's so much conversation about our community, our relationship with each other, about Black men and politics and, their desires, et cetera, et cetera. What is something that you wish more people understood about Black men?
I think the biggest thing is that Black men have feelings. So often you hear, you don't hear from Black men. And that's one of the reasons why I do the podcast, because there are men out there that see the issues that are in the community, and they're doing extraordinary things, and it needs to be highlighted. I mean, for the most part, what are we going to hear? We're going to hear the more than likely the negative stereotypes, and even our celebrities, right? I mean, what were the big things that were going on today? Drake, Kendrick Lamar diss wars. That was huge. Diddy and his challenges, and not a story of a Black man that wants to transform his community. You're just not going to hear those things, and those are the stories that need to be told, because I think the negativity, and I'm sure we'll get into that, impacts how, not just how we view ourselves, but then how our women view us too.
So you would say that Black men have feelings?
Yes.
That's what okay. Yeah. And what about you, Isaiah? What do you say?
I was going to go off of that, but to elaborate on that a little bit, I think that we don't get enough credit and enough grace. Just like Black women, we've all suffered here, specifically in America. It's been a lot of things going on throughout our years and the generations to carry on. There's a lot of damage and trauma done. And I feel like for Black men specifically, because it's been labeled that as men, we're not allowed to have feelings and outwardly speak about how we feel. It leads people to kind of disregard the way we feel. Therefore, the way we show up is different a lot of times in spaces where we don't feel comfortable or heard. So that internalization just turns into more anxiety built up in Black men. So I think people need to understand that we deserve grace and we want to be better for our families and our communities. And I think a lot of times it's the narrative basically says that we don't really care. We don't care about our kids. We don't care about getting jobs. We're not as ambitious as Black women. They pit us against each other, when I think that that's a lie. I just think that we might not always verbalize the way we feel because we don't feel safe. So we deserve those safe spaces. And that comes with being given grace by everybody.
Do you feel safe with Black women, or are you saying you feel unsafe in society?
I think in society in general, but a lot of I'm lucky because I've been raised by great Black women, but a lot of my brothers have not felt seen or heard in spaces with Black women.
Really?
And I think it's just because the feelings, I think it's just based on some stereotypes of like how men are supposed to carry themselves, even when they're dealing with hard times. So while they have been supported, I think sometimes their feelings may have been disregarded. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Well, but I can think there can be some Black men that don't feel safe around Black women because of, right, especially how the mothers or aunts or whoever that were in their life, if it was a traumatic situation, that's going to carry over. And so their energy, the energy that the Black male is actually bringing forth will attract that certain Black woman. Maybe a Black woman that wants to take advantage or see that Black man as weak and use it to their benefit. And so let's say, I'm a Black man that's been carrying it down. I can hold it down from an economic standpoint. But then when it gets down to being there for the family or for the kids, didn't get that knowledge and doesn't know how to do it. And then, also has a woman that's in their life that can take advantage of that. That's where the problems come in.
You both have intimated that there are Black men who don't feel safe in spaces with Black women.
Correct.
Yes,
Yes.
we both agree there.
Yes.
So not you personally, but you do know.
I've heard a lot. Yeah.
Can you give? I mean, because it's not your own personal experience. Is there any example where you personally?
I can
did
speak from an experience earlier on.
Okay.
Because I have a wife and a daughter who literally makes me want to work harder and do better every day. So I'm grateful for that. But growing up in the household, I'm the only boy. My dad wasn't in the household. My father and my mother split when I was 7. I became the man of the house. So while I was, let's say, going on 10 years old, I was raising my sister. My mom dealt with anxiety and depression. So I don't blame her for that because I understand what life can do, especially having my own experiences later on with it. But what I will say is having sisters, I always felt like I had to be a protector right away. That's not the part where I say that I felt unsafe. I say I felt unsafe when I went to say, I don't like this or I don't feel good about this. And I was called feminine. You know what I mean? My feelings were disregarded with every feeling of, if I'm crying, if I'm anything but angry, I'm considered to be weak. And I feel like that doesn't allow me to feel safe. I grew up to learn to internalize the way I felt. And that allows you to be a people pleaser. You kind of just take what people give you and you hold everything else in because it's not manly for you to complain about how you feel.
And who was saying these things to you? Who said that it's feminine for you to say you don't like how something feels? Who was regarding you that
My
way?
mom sometimes.
Really?
And even though I learned growing up that anxiety and depression show up differently in everybody. So while my mom passed when I was 18 years old, just to give you any reference, but like looking back on life and looking at how anxiety really kind of caused her to unravel over time, I learned that a lot of that was resentment from my father. You get what I'm saying? While I'm still in the household, and also not having a proper father figure in her own life. So what she sees as masculine is from the men that she has dealt with over time. And if she has bad history with my father, then it's like, you look just like your dad, or don't do that. That's feminine. Right. Or, boys don't cry about this. Stop crying and complaining versus what's wrong? Why are you feeling like this? What happened in school? So a lot of times I would just go to say, I'm just not going to say anything because nobody really, really is concerned about how I feel. And it became very, very hard, even in my marriage earlier on, for me to be honest about how I felt about something that made me feel uncomfortable. I can speak about anything else. I can help you through anything. But if I feel uncomfortable, I don't know how to verbalize how I feel. So I say that that's unsafe because then I go on in the world and I can't treat the women right that I'm dating because I don't have the proper tools to express myself.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's interesting to hear you say this because I feel like with your generation, this wasn't even a conversation. Like, I don't know how often in the, 70s and 80s that Black men were sitting around talking about their feelings. So I wonder, I hear your point that there are Black men who don't feel safe with Black women. I wonder, do Black men feel safe with each other, or did they feel safe with each other talking about their feelings decades ago?
Well, I think for my generation, as the elder, my dad was in the home. My parents have been married over 50 plus years. And so my dad, it was clear that my dad was the leader in the household. He had his specific role and he did a great job of it. Did we talk about emotions a lot? No. I mean, I think at that time it was, I'm the leader of the household, it's my way or the highway. And if you have emotions, you I'm gonna say bend to the rules, but it's the rules. And my dad would say that all the time. There's house rules. And the house rule number 57 is X, Y, and Z. And so, I mean, you look at it now and it's funny and it's unfortunate that we don't have that as much as we do now.
But did you feel like you could go to your dad and say, I'm having a bad day today, or my feelings were hurt today, or I don't feel safe here, or I didn't like the way you spoke to me, because there's a clear contrast here, I think, with you saying, hey, you are giving yourself grace, giving your mother grace, but also saying like, I had these big feelings that there wasn't space to deal with, and you're open and talking about that now. When you were younger, I don't know that you had that space or opportunity with your parents, friends. And
I think that was more the role of the mom. That was the mom's role to do that because my dad was out, making sure the home was safe, that we had meals, food on the table, that we had a house to live in. That was the mom's role. But I think also I don't want to shed light on the fact that it really depends on the family too, because I think we try to lump it all into one box, that every household was that way. And that's not always the case. I think it really, and even now, it really does depend on the type of household that you have. So, I mean, just to bring it to the current generation. So, my wife worked in the city. And so I worked closer to home. And so I would be the one that would be home to make sure the kids got food or got meals every day. So I cooked morning breakfast and I made dinner at night because my wife was working in the city. So it was a partnership and a trade-off, and we made sure to communicate that. So I think we can't always lump our families into one box.
But to the point specifically, though, about feeling safe, because that's what you all talked about. When you talk to you have sons?
I have sons, yes.
So do you talk to your sons about their feelings and emotions? Not necessarily the family structure, but specifically what you were saying about feelings and being able to express them. Did you have that in your house, and do you provide that space for your sons now?
Yeah, so we made a very conscious effort to make sure we allowed that space. So it creates a good example that we didn't spank our kids. And I think that was very strategic because we didn't want to tamp down their emotions. I think if you rule on violence, the kids are not apt to talk. And so you pay for it. You pay for it in other ways. So it's like the kids will be more apt to talk more and talk about their emotions and how their feelings are. And so we did have that in the home, and they did feel safe to share that.
And was that different from how you grew up?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting about the spanking, because I think that is a clear generational divide too. I lived in a home where there was spanking. It wasn't, like prevalent every day. Like my mother's generation, I'm sure it was different for her. Were you spanked?
I was.
And how did that impact you? And how does that impact you as a parent today?
A lot of my reasoning for not spanking and my discipline looks different is because of the fact that I felt like a lot of it wasn't necessary all the time. Not saying I'm innocent 100%, but I feel like sometimes it was because in my situation, my family didn't know how to deal with other things outside of violence. Like talking about it would probably be more traumatic than actually dealing with it head on. So for me, I deal with it differently because I think that it goes back to the feeling part. Like, it's like, these are humans. We have to humanize each other on a daily basis to realize that just because you don't understand my point of view doesn't mean that it's invalid. And I think that that's what makes me parent different with my daughter. It's like, I need to allow her to trust me as a person. If she trusts me, is about when she gets older, she'll be able to talk to me and have a conversation.
Yeah.
So the discipline looks different because of that. Because for a long time, I felt very alone. And I'm not saying my parents were terrible parents. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying when you look back on it, you've been through therapy and you start unraveling some stuff. I'm like, they were just as traumatized, if not more, than I was growing up. And a lot of it is a coping mechanism.
And when you know better, you do better.
Right.
I think there was this myth in the Black community. First of all, Black folks ain't the only people who spank their kids.
Right.
So we got to start
say
everybody
there.
spank.
Yeah.
It's not like,
talk about that more.
Yeah.
But there is a myth in the Black community that you have to beat a child into submission. Right. And when you know better, you do better. Right. You learn. Did your father have corporal punishment? Did he physically discipline you?
Oh, yeah.
And how did that impact you?
I think it impacts everybody kind of similarly because you're hesitant to make mistakes because you're like, oh, you might get the belt or the paddle or whatever, the switch, whatever you want to call it. So I think, and then you just kind of lose that voice, and that carries over into adulthood,
right?
And that was, I would imagine, impacted your decision not to hit your kids. Yeah, because you want them to find their voice. The sooner they can, the better. Right. Because out here in the world, you got to be able to speak up for yourself, especially your wants and desires. What do you want? If there's something that doesn't seem right to you, you got to speak up about it. Yeah. When I was younger, like I said, it wasn't like we were beat all the time, but a lot of kids will hide from their parents. And you think about it, it's this big person coming to hit you. It's a scary thing for a child. This big person is coming to beat you, to cause you pain with their hands or with a belt. That's terrifying. I used to run up to my mother and hold her and say, "But mommy, I love you so much. How could you do this to me?" Yeah, I couldn't believe. I'm like, I just didn't need to be hit,
Right.
you know.
Did it
But
work?
no. I mean, she would be trying to beat me and be beating herself. So it wasn't like I got hit all the time, you know. But I remember it just was never necessary. You could hurt my feelings, and that was enough for me. And I think sometimes that discipline, it is something that carries from the plantation. And sometimes it's our parents' frustration, you know, like they're frustrated with us and what we go through. So
and
I
sometimes I feel like on top of the add on that, it's like we got so much going on, especially as Black people, working, having to provide, having to do things that you beat your kids to make them do what you want to do faster. And I think that that's where it comes down to. Like, I don't have time to think about this. I got to figure out how we going to eat tomorrow. So the last thing I need is for you to act up. You know, you get in trouble in school or something.
Yeah.
And then you get home or they come to the school. They're like, you're embarrassing me. This is the last thing I need to do.
Yeah.
You're taking time away from me being at work, providing for you.
Yeah.
So it's like a layered anger.
I understand the expediency of it, but I also think it's harder for parents to talk about their insecurities as parents. Because if your kids are doing something wrong, then you're like, oh wait, then I didn't teach them right. That's one, or I'm doing something wrong. And so the beating, or it seems like it just gets it over with and then you can move on. I was like, I got to make dinner, you know?
Yeah.
And
you're expected to get over it quickly too. You know, your parents say, straighten your face up, hurry up. I don't want to hear you
keep crying.
about
I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Exactly. Because it's like, oh, it's done with. I did what I need to do. I needed you to learn the lesson. And now we move forward.
Yeah. And where do all those emotions go?
Right.
Like you
you
hold on to it.
Yeah. So you said, you know, men, but like, do you feel safe? Like when you look at the discourse happening just in society, in the atmosphere, how do you feel Black men are perceived, and what would you change about it? I know you talked about having feelings, but just even in the conversation of men and women and our dynamics with each other, how do you?
Well, I think it's a very strange time for Black men and what to feel and how to feel. As a parent, I think you do the best you can, but I think because you can use your own. So I use my own playbook because based on what my dad taught me, but I think it can be a little challenging because of the now it's a new generation, and so you kind of have to unlearn what you learned of what being a father was 30 plus years ago, and to kind of get with the times. So I had to do a lot of learning, a lot of figuring out what would be the best way to be a parent to my kids. And so there's really no real playbook that's out there because, I guess most of the dads or people that you emulate are, I guess, younger. And so they're a little bit more hip. They're more, they're dealing with the social media because it's almost as if they, come from that generation. And so that what makes it hard is to figure out how to morph some of your old school ways with the new school ways.
So you learn from younger.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's something that you've learned from the younger generation?
Riz.
Riz? You said Riz?
Riz. Having Riz.
What is Riz?
Charisma.
I don't know.
Charisma.
Oh, charisma.
Yes.
Our generation just shortened it.
Riz.
Yeah,
yes.
you got Riz
I
now.
had no idea.
They say if I'm trying to talk to you and I'm trying to get at you, I'm going to Riz you up.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Okay, Riz.
That's how you say
Okay.
it. Like you was rizzing her up. So if I was talking to you and I was trying to date you and they saw you blushing and smiling
You got Riz.
and looking like, oh, like you gonna bag her, then I rizzed you up.
Yep.
Riz. So the younger folks done taught you Riz. The younger folks just taught me Riz.
Yeah.
So yeah, they taught you
Riz
Riz.
and aura and those those kind of words. And I think
Vibes.
So, but is it dialect or is it how to have charisma? Is it colloquialism or is it they taught me these words or they taught me how to?
Well, it's
how
just
to
more
move.
so how to relate to them. Because right now, I mean, kids are.
How old are your kids?
I have 26 or will be 26, 21, and 17.
Okay.
So, and the kids are much more advanced now than we were because they have social media. They can hear, they'll hear about stuff that's going on and probably know about it before I will. And so they'll challenge your thoughts or beliefs whereby, I didn't challenge my parents. I didn't challenge my dad. What he said was, I guess, gospel, for lack of a better word, because he was on a more knowledgeable level. Now it's different. Your kids will challenge your beliefs and your thoughts. And so you have to be open to accept what they're going to say and what their thoughts are.
That's helpful too, because I got a 3-year-old, so I haven't made it to that point yet.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
And that was very frustrating, I guess, when, the teenage years, because you're like, wait, you're trying to raise up and challenge me? Like, oh no, we don't do that here.
But that's an interesting thing because somebody tweeted this out. This was like maybe a year ago, and it was a black man, and he was saying something to the effect of, "It's something about us that we all want to challenge our dads. Like we look at our dads, like, can I take him? And all these black women started weighing in and like responding with gifts, and they were like, somebody posted a cartoon of a black angel coming down to earth, and she was like, "This is my mama coming back from heaven." With me even thinking about challenging her. I wonder what that is. It's like the lions, two lions going at it. I have never had that.
I mean, and that's not a generational thing.
So every generation.
I tried to challenge my dad once,
really?
And that didn't work.
Tell us that story. What happened? Because I see you still have all your teeth. So tell us what happened.
Well, no. I was in college, and there was an issue that happened where I think I took the keys. We're at a family reunion. I had the keys to the car, and they were ready to go. And I felt pretty much corralled by the entire group at the family reunion. And I pushed back, and then he pushed back with a punch in the chest. And it was very for emasculating. So if it wasn't for my wonderful grandmother, rest her heart. Rest in peace. It would have been, she stepped in and tried to help me because it was, like you said, it was like I was in a circle and I was basically going to slaughter.
Yeah.
And that's how it,
Did he
and that's
knock
how
the
it felt.
wind out of you, or was it one of the...
people there heard a thud.
But how did you feel in that moment?
Like I said, I felt, one, just how could that have happened? Felt emasculated, but we laugh about it now because it was just kind of the times was like funny. But he would have said, "Look, that was the way it was going to be. You're not gonna challenge the authority here."
Did your sons ever challenge you?
Oh yes.
And how did that go? Tell us what happened.
Well, I had to try to put them in their place.
Yeah.
Because
was it with thud on the chest? What happened?
No, it was more so in their face. Like
Okay.
it wasn't a violent thing.
Okay.
Because
it's one of those where you talking this close,
because
so they know clear.
You can't come back from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am glad that never happened. But I wanted to say, okay, look, there's just certain boundaries or lines that you're not going to cross, and one of them is like, you're not going to try to disrespect me in my home.
Yeah.
That rule still applies.
Yeah. And did you ever?
I've had it, but my dynamic was completely different because I moved with my dad when I was 14. And I was used to living with my mom and my sisters. So me and my dad's relationship was always a little different because I don't think my dad really knew me, if that makes sense. Like he was still present in my life, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time together. So he doesn't really know me. So I think the dynamic for us was I've always stayed out the way to avoid the drama because I dealt with that a lot, and living in the house of women, that's just the way I coped with things. So it wasn't ever school. I was never like bad in behavior. So when we had our differences, it was because I don't agree with your perception or your point of view, and you don't like it. So a lot of times I would try to walk away because it was the only way I felt like I have to honor my dad, my mom and dad. I grew up learning that. So it's like, I'm not going to disrespect you, but also you're not saying something that makes me feel like I need to respect that either. So I'll walk away.
Yeah.
So his anger was more like, if you want to keep trying to walk away, then we can go outside and we can rumble. And I'm just like, I would never raise back up at him because that's just not how I was raised.
Yeah.
But ours was, we got two different point of views, and we had to learn to just respect the fact that we're different.
Yeah.
And I could see how that couldn't be, you wouldn't be emotionally attached because
I don't know
because
you.
it was you didn't know because it's like when you have those feelings, you really couldn't share those because what is he going to do with them?
Right. He can't relate. Like he really doesn't at the time didn't even know how to empathize with what I would feel because when you know your kids, you know your kids. You can kind of already expect what you're going to get. So I think for him it was jarring as well. And that's the part that I look back on older and I'm like, okay, you don't even like you're not happy that you don't know me. That doesn't make you feel good. So then you kind of empathize. It's like such a weird like dynamic.
Yeah. Did you feel safe with your dad?
Now or before?
Both.
I say safe, yes. But I told my dad during the pandemic around the time I was like, you don't know me still. And I said, that should bother you considering that I lost my mom at 18 years old. Like, I would think that would have brought us closer together.
Right.
And I learned that he's been through a lot of, like, guilt and depression about a lot of things. And he kind of went into his own cocoon, even while we was living with him. And that makes me empathize with him as a man, but you still got to be responsible. Because with the things that I've been through, I'm like, I built a life, a beautiful wife, a beautiful daughter who I'm present with, who I spend time with, who I get to know. So I can't let you off the hook as a man because I'm now doing the things that you say you want to do. So the action has to line up. So for me, it's like, it's the navigation of that. I feel safe with him, but I want him to stand on his word more as a man.
Yeah.
And now that I am a man, he respects me and he's proud of me for what I do. So I think it kind of makes him look at himself a lot more.
Yeah.
So we haven't reached the point yet where he has heard what I've been saying to the point where like, okay, I really need to get to know my son.
Yeah.
But he's too focused on what he has going on.
Yeah.
He's not happy. So now you got to look at that. You're not happy. So I can't really expect you to show up for me the way I need you to if you feel like you have work to do and all you can see is your needs.
Yeah.
I got to respect that as a man and let you go ahead and get help when you're ready to do it.
Yeah, of course. So did you feel safe with your dad?
Oh, absolutely.
You did?
Yes.
And you think your
absolutely.
kids feel safe with you?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I want to switch a little bit because something interesting that I have found is fashion with men.
Okay.
It has
Let's
changed.
talk about it.
So I feel like the older I get, I'm becoming one of those get off my lawn type people. But I look at the way young men dress now, and young men wear pearls. Young men are painting their nails. Young men are wearing tighter fitting clothes. And to me, these things are, I don't have an opinion on it. I'm like, what? But I do definitely find it interesting. It is kind of a shock to me. Like, oh, I didn't expect fashion to go here. But I'm reminded when I was growing up, young men were piercing their ears. And I think how must our parents have looked at it at that time, young men were wearing their pants off their asses, like sagging. Like, how must our parents have looked at us? And so, as our seasoned gentleman on the panel, I'm curious when you look across this landscape and you have seen the different phases of fashion when it comes to Black men, and now we're at the point of pearls and painting nails. And these are not, effeminate Black men. Not that that makes anybody less of a man, regardless of your sexual orientation. This is just the fashion choices that no matter who you sleep with, this is the fashion choices people make. What do you make of it?
Well, it's so funny when you say that. When I see Isaiah, he's old school because he's got a haircut close, and more than likely you don't see that right now. So both of my boys have dreads, and both of them have their ears pierced. So when my son wanted to pierce his ears, because back in the day it was just one ear, and then it was like both ears. Like, okay, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah.
But I think after a while you just kind of get used to it. It's just the aesthetic and how they are today. Everybody wears sweats and things of that nature. And I think my open-mindedness has helped. It's like, okay, it's not who they are. It's really, it's just what they wear. And they all just kind of conform with they have to conform with the culture and the times, because if they try to buck the trend, then they would really stand out. And we don't want to stand out. We don't want to stand out. We want to just go with the times and the flow, because everybody doesn't want to get talked about. And that's the biggest thing. And it was back the same way back then.
What was the fashion for you growing up, though? Like, what was the thing that you were wearing that maybe your dad was looking at you like, I don't know about this boy?
So we had the, and I don't even remember the name of the pants, but they had the pants with the lines, the colored pants with the lines down the side. I know I'm dating myself, but I forget what when they were. But they had that, and then everybody had the Izod polo shirts.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted an Izod shirt so bad. Did I get one? No. But that was
your Gordon Gartrell.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. But I mean, that was the fashion back then.
Yeah.
And so you just wanted to
fit in.
Look like you were fitting in.
What do you think? Because this is your generation who's
I'm
doing these things.
definitely a little different.
Okay.
I definitely agree with him. I'm a little bit more of an old soul, but I think I've grown up to appreciate vintage and the style that is. And I actually like to stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm a little more understated with my fashion in general. So low cut fade. I had the same fade since I've been 13.
Yeah.
Haven't deviated from it at all. I used to have a part. That was it.
Yeah.
And as I got older, that phased out. I think that it's different, but I want to also give a nod to social media and the exposure that our children in this generation has to all the different perspectives in the world is at your fingertips. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. You couldn't just go on and watch the Met Gala.
Yeah.
That, just scroll. Everything is instant. So a lot of times people's perspective have opened up because of the fact that they're seeing so many different things. And I'm that's why people want to be different. People want to do something edgy to stick out. And also, this generation is not really a rule follower.
Yeah.
So it's they want to do things that are different because they feel like they've been told to do things for so long.
Yeah.
That's why you see people raising their kids up and let them express themselves the way they want earlier on.
Do any of your boys wear pearls or paint their nails or peers, people you see and do you have an opinion about it? Are you mostly indifferent about it?
I think I'm indifferent.
Yeah.
But I think that self-expression is important, and specifically, as we're talking about, for a Black man, to be able to defy the odds and do something different. It may not be for me, but who am I to tell you to do something that doesn't feel like yourself? So
how do you like it? How do you like seeing?
It's very interesting. So I was at a friend's house, and his son, was wearing pearls, and his father was berating him for it and that's so whack and what y'all doing and what y'all wearing. Yeah. And I was telling him no, you're the lame now. That is what people are doing. You are now the person that they're looking like my dad is whack and he don't even know about pearls or painting nails. And
how do you feel about the man purses?
Okay, this is how I feel about it for younger people. I feel like it's just a sign of the time. Nothing new is under the sun. This is where fashion is going. I support it. I like it. Do it. When it comes for me and my generation, if I see somebody in my dating pool, you are,
that's what I wanted to know.
Right, in your late 40s, early 50s, and you're doing that, I think midlife crisis. I think you are trying to live out your youth. I think you're trying to fit in with a younger crowd because we didn't grow up doing that. And the men who I know who do that, who are, got gray beards and grays everywhere else, who are doing that, it's you're going through something. You got married young and now you're divorced and you're trying to live right. Yeah. Exactly.
So that's a definite deal breaker.
It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it is I would be honest, it's a red flag. Because I'm that seems, it's 20 years ago when grown ass men were still wearing throwbacks, and it's we kind of aged out of that, and so I look at that pearls.
My dad
and
was one of them trying to get me to keep the throwback going. He kept trying to get me to keep it. I was it's time. I think it's time.
You have to
that.
Exactly. So I know this to anybody out there who rocking pearls, keep doing you. But I think
definitely 40, 45-year-old men with the purses and pearls. Somewhere.
Yeah, well, they're a little younger than me, but I think 45 and over. Yeah. I do question that. I think Is
there anything from the generation carried over with the older people that you would let pass? Any fashion trend, anything that you can think of?
I think the colors. I think Black men look so good in pink. And pastels, Dwayne Wade, I think has really good fashion sense, and he paints his nails, but his style is so good. Somebody I know personally, Dion Cole, I think Dion has a good fashion. It's innovative. It's not the same thing that you see all the time. I definitely like men who are comfortable enough to do something different. So I do appreciate
and I feel
that.
That's hard because even in this generation, it's hard. Sometimes people are looking for a reason to call you feminine.
Yeah.
So a lot of men that you see that don't wear color and don't like express themselves through their fashion never really had the opportunity to feel like they can do that.
And then secretly they want to.
Yeah.
You know, but it's
they
the
want to
whole
dress different. They want to try something new, but you're afraid of what the perception from men and specifically women are going to be as well.
Yeah, this is true.
Well, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not painting my nails.
Yeah.
It's like,
not
I mean, it just would not.
Yeah.
If I saw a 20-year-old with his nails painted, I'm not thinking a lot about it. If I saw a 49-year-old man with his nails painted, I am thinking a lot about it.
He might be sitting next to you at the shop. He might pull up next to you.
That's a bridge too far for me, to be honest, but it could be my generation.
Yeah.
But this is leading me into something else because we keep using the word like feminine. And I think something that has changed among Black men, we still have a long way to go in terms of equality, but I think the way that we view, receive, respect, and honor gay men, gay Black men, for a long time, you could say the F word, you know, it was normal. I remember on sitcoms, people would say sissy, you know, like it wasn't even like anything that was bleeped out. And now it would be abhorrent to have somebody say the F word and you would never say sissy. Yeah. And so we've come a long way. But when you were coming up, Keith, how honestly did you and your peers view gay Black men? How did you receive them? Did you know any? How was it for you?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't think we knew any. It wasn't really an acceptable thing. If we even saw someone that dressed out of the norm, we would consider them gay. Yeah. And I think that was...
And it was a negative thing.
It was a negative thing.
It was something to be taunted. You know, it was not something that was accepted by any means.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And I think you would go out of your way to make sure you didn't do that either. And so I think that was really... And that's, I guess that's unfortunate because there are men that we hear about, James Baldwin, just very great luminary men they were kind of shunned. And that's
and you say you didn't know any, but maybe you did. Yeah. And people, they didn't feel comfortable in being themselves, you know, because I think that's another misconception that people are like, oh, we didn't have as many gay people when I was young. Yes, you did. It's not, there isn't, right. It's not new.
Well, it's not something you could be out front about.
Right.
Because I think there was a lot of fear.
Yeah.
That went along with it. I mean, we knew some, or at least we thought, but it's not something that was openly discussed.
Are all of your sons heterosexual?
Yes.
And do they have...
Just two. I only have two.
Two sons. Yes. And do they have gay friends? Or what's their...
Well, what's so interesting is that... so my son is a streamer, and he talks about that openly. He's able to talk about it openly on his channel. And people question and things like that, but he doesn't shy away from the discussion. And I think that's the difference between the generations now and the generations past, whereby if you were gay in our generation, it's something you wouldn't openly talk about because you never knew what was going to happen around the corner. Now it's like, hey, if I am, I am. But that doesn't take away who I am as a person.
Yeah. And what about you? How do you view...
I think we're just in the age in general more of where that conversation can be had. Like the way I've been raised a lot differently than other people, where I've had a lot of different perspective around me. You know what I mean? So my acceptance of people, it just looks different in general. But I'm a firm believer in leading with love in general as a person. You respect the person. If you don't agree with the lifestyle that they live, you can keep that to yourself. That's not your place to speak and make somebody feel less than because you don't understand. And I think that that's the difference. Is like I have all types of friends. You know what I mean? And I think that
gay friends.
Yeah. And I think that because you're a person, you're a human being. Like that doesn't change your character. It doesn't make you a bad person because we like different things. It's not like that. So I think that it's very, very important for men specifically to see the diversity in men in general. Yeah. And who we are. Yeah. And I think that that's the part that's missing is that we can't keep on trying to say what a black man looks like and root it in toxic masculinity. Yes. Like we can't do that because a lot of people are afraid to be themselves, even outside of just gay, like anything. Speak about how they feel, speak about feelings of confusion. If they're confused and don't understand it and don't have anybody to talk to. So it's very important for us to realize that there's diversity in who we are in general. And I think that that's what allows me to accept people for who they are and where they are in their walk in life.
Yeah. 30 years ago, we would never have this conversation.
Not at all.
Another thing I think that has changed through the years is dating. Now your generation, you slide in the DMs. Your generation, you had to spit that game in person. What is the biggest change there as a relationship coach, especially? What have you noticed?
Well, I think that is the biggest change, that you can slide into DMs, or people think e-dating there is actual a relationship. And that's unfortunate, I think, because I do think you can form opinions of the type of relationship that you have and the type of person someone is based on what they see from a social media platform. And so when they try to get connected in real life, that's where the problems come. It's like, hey, wait, you're not like your profile said. It's like, well, that wasn't really me in the first place. And so I wish we could kind of move away from that.
How did you meet your wife? Like, how did that relationship start? There were no DMs back then.
DMs.
So what was your equivalent? What was your Riz with your wife?
Well, I mean, we met at a wedding.
Okay.
And so,
did you go up to her? Like, give me the story.
I had to. Yeah, I had to go up to her, and she wasn't a friend. I didn't know her at the time. I knew of her, but I didn't know who she was. So she happened to sit in front of me at the wedding, and I actually had to talk to her. And so, very beautiful. She happened to be sitting at the same table. That.
And I guess I'm getting at like just dating itself. You had to go up and talk to somebody. You asked them out on a date. You went out somewhere. In your generation, it's
so many different ways. We had the Tinder. We're in the Tinder.
The swipe left, swipe right,
what you like going
Snapchats.
So it's quick. Like I said, it's at your fingertips. So some people's perceptions, they don't have to really work for anything until you get to know a person. Right. You get to know a young lady that be like, no, we dating, like we came out the date, but we gonna meet at a place. You're gonna treat me right. You're gonna show me a good time, like the old days.
How did you meet your wife?
College.
Okay.
We had mutual friends, but I actually met her like at a party just after a college event. So I got to know her, and then we were friends.
But what did you go up to, or like?
It was different because it was like, the thing I like about college is that it's a time that you're never going to get again, in the sense of like, you're in a bubble. So a lot of times it was like, I walked up to her and she saw me and I saw her, and we just started dancing together. You know what I mean? And that was literally it. Then I would see her on campus. Like, you have, it's like curated for you where you kind of walk into it. So after that, it was like, okay, I see her. Now we can start hanging out and start getting to know her. So it was easier to get to know her because the mutual friendships, kickbacks, parties, just have that natural conversation.
I think some of the evolution I've seen is women have had their feelings hurt and things have happened, and so they start living like men. Yeah. It's I'm going to assemble me a roster. I'm going to evolve into I'm going to take the emotion and feeling out of sex, and I'm going to live how they live, and it just feels like it builds this animus between us and in the community, where people think that dating is being with a bunch of people, sleeping with a bunch of people, and then like picking one. And I think in my generation, like, that's not what dating is, that's not how it goes. And so I'm concerned as I see us getting away from and I honestly think it is a big part of it is these smartphones, these mobile phones where you have everything at your fingertips. We did a show with sex workers and we were talking about porn, and even when it comes to sex, there is from your generation and younger, people consider sex something that you do to a woman, not something that you enjoy with a woman. Right, exactly. And it's just like, you're there to benefit me and give me pleasure, and that's it. And so I just wonder the future of our relationships with each other, if we are trying to build, if we're trying to still have families, if we're honoring each other. And I just, I don't know. I see, especially and people are chasing Instagram models and the filtered version of each other and not really seeing each other. It seems like we're getting away from.
Well, I think it's a very problematic time right now, our relationships, because I think ultimately men want to, I think almost men and women feel the same way almost, where they're both are traumatized from their lives, and then they're trying to find someone that is not heal the trauma, but will not be in the same pool. So they'll find the exact opposite of the person that they want to be with. And so I think with Black women and Black men both operating the same way, it's hard for them to get together because that's what they're going to lead with. And, you know, and so look, just trying to find something like having sex, doing sex to women, it's like, wow, that's crazy. Because it's like, okay.
It's like an inanimate object. Like, you're just there for my pleasure.
Well, then it's just an action, and men don't understand that the intimacy part is pleasurable too. It is not just about the sex is just the action, but the intimacy is the complete thing.
The holistic experience.
Yeah.
You know, when you said earlier, people need to perceive that men have feelings.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason. I think that if men aren't being taught in community with other men to let them know that it's okay for you to have feelings, how can you be intimate with anybody?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Confused within yourself.
Right. So you're looking for the
point.
transactional feelings, things that take away how you feel for the moment.
Yeah.
Until it consumes you, basically, because you just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
To escape.
It comes across as misogynistic. As a woman, it comes across as very misogynistic.
And it's
you have to wonder, like, do you like women?
Right.
Like, you might like having sex with women, but do you like women?
Right.
Because we're not just here to be on your roster and be, you know, a part of what you want to do.
And I agree with that. And I think that it comes from also a not liking of self.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think it always comes back to the self-work. You hear a lot of men that are trying to do better talk about doing self-work to see yourself.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we are on autopilot. You're a man, you're trying to make money, you're trying to do everything to appeal to people, you want to take care of your family.
Yeah.
You think that you're breaking generational curses, but the only thing you're thinking about is the financial aspect.
Right, exactly.
And then you're chasing money, which can be an issue. If you don't know who you are, you're going to go whatever way the wind blows.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why you're in the same position with the same woman, but you can't take any accountability for the part that you play.
Or
you
expect a Michelle Obama or a Claire Huxtable, but you no diss to JJ, but you a JJ. You know, like it's this unrealistic expectation.
But I mean, I want to push back a little bit. So that, like, the type of person that you are with your feelings and things like that, wouldn't it be that you could be overlooked as a man because of the person that you are? You're not hard. You're not trying to represent yourself in a way that, you know, can we curse on
Yeah,
here?
of course. Yeah,
I ain't taking no shit as a man.
Right.
And whereby that's almost a kind of appealing type thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I really wonder if that, you know, because you were able to find your wife in a space that was contained.
Yeah.
But if you're out there in the world now, your personality might be overlooked. Yeah.
I mean, I might sound kind of harsh when I say this, but keep looking. Look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Change your pool. Like look around, because I feel like it's we don't know how to endure anymore through things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the issue is. We want instant gratification for everything. So if I go on a date with you, we go out and you do one thing I don't like, I'm not calling you back in this generation.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I feel like you didn't serve me in the time.
You're looking for perfection.
In life is not going to always feel like it's serving you.
Well, I want to talk about this pool for a minute because, look, Black folks have some of the highest endogamy rates out there. But according to Pew, 21% of married Black men choose a non-Black spouse as their life partner. It's 13% for Black women. I want to acknowledge, I will say it again, we have high endogamy rates within our community. We intermarry more than anyone else. But there is this perception that successful Black men, or just Black men in general, will go out and find non-Black women, race-ambiguous Black women. And it's like, you know, perpetuates this narrative of how unattractive, how undesirable Black women are. Have y'all ever played in the snow?
Nope.
No.
Absolutely not.
I would say yes.
You have.
Yes.
Oh, I'm turning to you now.
Well, I mean,
when, why, and how?
For me.
so one of the things is that I grew up I went to a predominantly white school, and so at that time I was seen as, I was almost in a place where I was I'm gonna say a fish out of water. I didn't where I grew up, it was in an area that was more affluent in the town. So in the Black community, I was looked at a certain way, differently. And so that's when I moved to New Jersey, that wasn't the case. But over time, I was seen as, if you want to say the nerd, but I was not seen as a part of the Black community.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in high school, love is love. You just want to like somebody that likes you back. And so when I got to college, that changed because because I had gone to school in a predominantly white school, I wanted to date and meet someone that was
okay.
So
that's
why.
fine. If you in North Dakota and you fall in love with white,
that's where
we
you at.
get it.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about people in New York City, Washington D.C.,
Just
South
choosing.
side of
Yeah.
Chicago, Los Angeles, walking around with non-Black women, race ambiguous Black women, or white women. How do you like if any of your boys brought a white woman around y'all? How y'all saying something to him, or it's like it's all good? Are y'all congratulating him? Y'all shaming him?
I'm
like
for
what's
sure
the-
asking questions.
Yeah.
At least. Like I'm just, especially if it's a behavior that wasn't around before with the person. Like I'm like, so you must really, really, you work your way in. You must really like her. Like, you know what I mean? You must really be in love because that's different. But that is how I carry myself and how I feel. I think for me, proximity was one thing.
Yeah.
Growing up, I grew up in Philly in the city. Like it was, I didn't see a lot of white women.
Yeah.
But then when I moved and I got more exposure, and I can say this on here, right? Like I think the behaviors of white women I just don't really favor. I think sometimes they fetishize Black men. And like that perception of Black men sexually, I've heard women say certain things and like make advances, and I just really wasn't with it. It just feels very, very inauthentic. And being raised by Black women, I'm like, I want a Black family. I want my family to be Black. We were brought over here by people that don't look like us, that did us wrong. For the sense of representation in general is important for me to keep my family as Black as I can keep my family.
Yeah. Is your
so
wife
for me-
Black?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't want to offend nobody, but I think it's very important to know, like, there are Black men out here who love Black women and who may take a longer time to find somebody because they just haven't found a Black woman that they want, but they won't quit on that. Like I remember being out with my homies, and I got homies who are studying PhDs in Africology and everything, and we're out and a white woman comes up to us. We having the guys not out. We had a table like this, and she walks up and says, "I just want to tell y'all are some handsome men." My friend who's studying, he says, "I just want to let you know right now, none of us are interested in white women."
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
That's aggressive. How
That
did
is,
she
yeah.
respond?
she just was like, I understand. But then we go over to another place and she follows like with her friends. And then what she do? She finds another Black man and she goes in the bathroom with him.
Oh, okay.
Like, and I'm like, that's
See.
what I mean by fetishizing.
Yeah.
Like Black men and not really seeing us as human beings.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just never set right with me.
Yeah.
When it went like that. So I always knew I was gonna marry Black.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Even because I mean the stereotype is like athletes do it, but even among athletes, like most athletes are married to Black women, but you do see like the profiles of people with non-Black women on their arms, and I think it just sends an ugly message. I think.
Well, I mean, let's look at the commercials too.
Yes, a lot of interracial
they've
couples
gone
in
to the
commercials.
great lengths to make the commercials more interracial.
Yeah,
And I think that's by design because they can say, oh, well, either the Black families are dying or that it's okay that,
The diversity.
it's that,
Yeah.
it's more,
Yeah.
we're more humanized.
Yeah.
And I
Some
think
people
that
would
plays
call
a
that
part.
progress. Other people are offended by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, but I would like to see more imagery of Black families.
Yes.
We also have to talk about skin tone, like colorism within our community, because even
I
Black
dealt with a lot of that
men,
growing up.
I bet,
Yeah.
and even Black men. So the '80s was the era of the light skinned man.
Yeah.
So, but then Aaron Hall and Wesley Snipes
Yeah,
came,
I was
and
born in 91, so,
okay,
yeah.
so you were born at a good time,
Yeah.
But even with Black men, it's like the race ambiguous Black woman, like somebody who's fair skinned, somebody who has a certain hair texture, and I wonder how Black men view darker skinned black women, beautiful black women, but I still will see in rap songs and people in their arms. It's like, oh, why? It's almost like I'm gonna get as close to non-black as I can.
Mixed, like it got to be black mixed with something.
Right.
Like you hear people say like Blasian.
Right.
Or like things like
like
that.
I'm okay because she black, but she fair skinned or she's some
or
sort
she has
of level
good hair.
of yes,
The
horrific
women like that.
good hair. I can't stand that term, but yes, what people.
But isn't there? I think has diminished a little bit.
Thank you. Look, our executive producer on camera is like.
I mean, I know they, and I didn't see it, but there was. I know there was a young, and I only saw it briefly on social media. There was the young woman she was black, and she was featured on I think the Met on the gala.
Yeah, that could happen. I take your point, Keith, but I think having one or two examples, it still remains a prevalent thing. Colorism among that is perpetuated by black men specifically is still a consistent thing. Yes, please.
I think it is the colorism part, but I think on top of it, it's the features. And I think that's the part that people don't talk about. If you are a brown woman and you have a smaller nose or your lips look a little different, then I think that it's a little more accepting for people than versus women who have natural West African features.
Yes.
And I think that that's where we have me and my wife talk about this all the time. It's like people calling darker women ugly who have big noses and super big like lips that are animated more like beautiful features, but it's not accepted by society. And I think that that's where it changes the dynamic of it, or their hair is a little more coarse.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
And it may be my perspective because before you would never see them.
Yeah.
And it would never be seen at all.
Yeah.
And so even though we've moved the ball forward, maybe
we have
a little
bit.
We still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
It's funny to me
loving
though, that
ourselves.
the big lips aren't really acceptable for black women who naturally have the lips, but then you have the women who go and buy them,
get collagen injections, all of that,
and it's like accepted and it looks cool, like for people. Or like when women in the workplace used to get in trouble at work for having like certain hairstyles.
Yes.
But then you look on runways and you see women with box braids and calling it something else.
Absolutely.
So I just think it's weird that when it's switched around with different people that aren't black, it's always more acceptable than it is with the people who naturally created this.
Right. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Women, I think we tend to dress for each other and pull ourselves together for each other. If a handsome man walked in the room with a beautiful woman, honestly, I'm looking at the woman. You know, I'm looking at her outfit. I'm looking at everything.
I heard that lately.
Yes.
I'm about to say that.
I heard that.
Yes, it's really for each other. But all this effort we put in, do men notice things or care about things like lashes, like hair, nails, like all this effort that women make? What do y'all make of it?
I would say from my point of view, I say we do, especially when you live with a woman. You start to see the effort that they put into the stuff that they do. So I think it's about perspective. Once again, it's about being around women and seeing them put lashes on if they do that, get their eyebrows done, put the work in to go get their makeup done or do it themselves. Like, then you appreciate, like, I tell my wife, she comes in the house, your eyebrows look good. Like, you know, because you understand it in that way. Yeah. I think most men look at the full package. So they see you looking good. They like, she looked good. Mm-hmm. But lately I've been hearing younger guys talking about like, she had her feet done. Her feet looked good. She had them white toes.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I'm a big hands and toes guy. So
really,
yeah. So those, which is weird. I noticed that those are kind of probably the first things I know. And then a smile too is very, I think, very important because that's the first thing that you're going to notice is if someone smiles at you and they're warm, that breaks down the barriers.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's done as much.
Because I smile, grew up in Georgia, so you pass people, you smile at people. That's not always an invitation to come out. Like sometimes I'm just trying to like smile. I see you, brother. How you doing today? Like and keep it moving. Yes, and we don't owe you a smile. I hate when people say smile. It's like I don't want to smile.
I think it's a conversation starter.
But that's not the move. Brothers, don't do that. That's not the move.
I think that's what they try to do.
Right, but I'm just saying you'll probably be approached more because you're smiling.
But maybe I don't want to be approached. Maybe I'm just smiling saying
But
hi.
what I'm saying as men, we won't get that as much. Yeah. We'll get the hard the hard stares or don't even talk to me. Aww. And so that's the thing. If they see that, it's like, oh, at least I can at least approach. And that makes a difference.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
For me, it was eye contact. Like when I was dating, I was like, it wasn't about the women smiling. It's like if we're out and I keep seeing her looking at me, and I keep seeing like those eyes, then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
it's something going on over here. Like we could do that. So
Do y'all care about fake hair?
it doesn't bother me.
No.
No.
We
We don't know most of the time anyway.
yeah, fair enough. Okay, I want to shift gears a bit. So look, we try to have definitely classic conversations on this show, and we've already established that Black men do amazing things and are integral to our lives, and we honor and celebrate Black men. I want to shift gears and get to what the streets are out here talking about, because there are, as much as we honor Black men, there are people who I know and people who you guys know who did not have a good experience with the Black men in their life. And there seems to be this trend with men fathering multiple children outside of a relationship or a marriage. Comes to mind about Future. Obviously, we all know about Nick Cannon, NBA YoungBoy. I'm not in the demographic who knows NBA YoungBoy. You and I are both like, who is that? But apparently, he got a lot of children out there. And when you do that, can you really show up for your children in the way that you need to? And I just want to point out that these are also men with disposable income. Apparently, they got to have disposable income. For people out here, working at the barbershop on the corner doing that, like, it's a completely different reality, and you're really setting up your family for not the best circumstances. Right. But I'm just curious, what do y'all make of that, about men doing that?
Well, to me, I think it is a joke, actually, the way it's, I guess, portrayed. I think as an elder, you want to be emotionally involved with your kids. It's not just about being able to provide from a monetary standpoint, because I think that's what we got as kids. Our parents like, look, I'm providing for you. That's all I need to do. You should feel safe that way. Now the things are different. You want to make sure you're emotionally involved with your kids, because you want their mental health to be intact. That's a real thing now. And so when you have multiple kids like that, you just don't have the time. I mean, if you have a job and you are at home, you can't devote your time to that many kids. It's just not enough time. I mean, from a time standpoint, and it makes it much harder. So some kids are going to get left through the cracks, and I'm sure Nick, Young Thug, or whatever his name is, they're going to feel that later on. They may not feel that now, but when kids start to become adults and they can process their feelings, some are going to have been left behind.
Yeah.
I think personally it's a little irresponsible. And I think that even if you do have the income, I think the problem is that the presence is super important. Me growing up without a father in the household affected me. And I didn't realize it until I got older. Also, you look at like your mom, you having to feel like you have to be your mother's safety. You know what I mean? Because you don't have a man there to protect her. So I think about me and my household and my little girl. I'm like, I love that she feels safe. And I love that the safety blanket isn't just her mother, and her mother can be herself and be feminine and be soft without feeling like she has to protect her physically if somebody was to break in the house. Yeah. Like, I think that those are the things you miss when you're not in the household. And then you miss moments. Like, you can't be with all of them at the same time. So you miss them growing up. You miss the milestones. And sometimes it's just the presence of just being in the room in general. A man being in the room makes the difference.
It does.
No matter how many people try to make it seem like that's not the case, you being in the room makes the difference. And I think that that's just what it is.
Yeah. Shout out to the brothers in the room.
Yes.
That's it.
You got to be there.
Yeah.
And then mom doesn't have to take on so much of the emotional aspect that comes with raising children.
Right.
And going through changes. We both take it on. Yeah. And now the child has two perspectives to look at and point of view so that they can make their own decisions.
Yeah. So they say that women marry their fathers. Do men marry their mothers?
I'll answer first. Absolutely not.
No, really. You sure?
My man said absolutely.
Right. So your wife does not remind you of your mom in any way?
No.
No.
I mean, because I think, my dad traveled a lot. So me and my mom were my younger years were very close. And so I would probably say I had more of my mom's attributes And who knows if what that was, whereby I was, I always asking questions and wanted to ask. I probably ask more questions whereby my kids are probably looking at me like, you ask too many questions, And so my wife was very strong personality, more so like my dad. So I think that's what happened. We don't want to marry our moms because our moms may mirror who we are as people.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's
what do
really
you
good.
say?
For me, I don't think that she reminds me of my mom. And being so that I lost my mom at an early age, she is the person I feel like I'm in love with her, but I feel like my mother would have loved her too because of the way that she takes care of me.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what matters more. Like my mother always wanted the best for me, even when she wasn't in her best state.
Yeah.
So I felt like in order for her legacy to live on, I have to love intentionally. The women that I love, it has to be intentional.
Yeah.
So I learned how to treat women through my relationship with my mother before anybody.
Yeah.
So I see her in senses of the way my wife loves me. I'm like, my mom would have been over the moon to know that I had that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I should say women, it's not that we marry our fathers. We marry a mirror of who our fathers were or who we wished our fathers would have been.
Right.
So maybe that's some parallels
That's a good way
with
to
men.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, this has been an amazing,
awesome.
amazing conversation.
Yes.
Y'all are the first men on Across Generations. So I thank you all for your testimonies, your honesty, your openness. And to all the brothers out there, I hope you all tuned in and saw yourselves reflected here. Please continue to watch and subscribe to Across Generations. Be sure to download our episodes, like, follow, do all the things, and drop a comment and let us know what you thought of this episode. We so appreciate you all tuning in. And because I had my two kings here alongside, I think it's apropos that we toast with our brown to close out the show. So shall we, gentlemen?
Yes.
Cheers, guys, to Black men.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your perspective.
No, thank you.
All right. We'll see you next time on Across Generations.